deceptive, manipulative.
He's also a former social worker and a political campaign activist.
Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
I'm leaving. I'm glad. Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass.
What's up, people? Welcome to the Eerie Americas. This is your host, Kristi Hull.
This is Vicky Ayala.
I'm in the middle of moving right now, and nothing makes me happier than being here because I could just zen out. Because as everyone knows, moving is like number 2 most stressful thing a human being can do.
They said the 3 really stressful things are death, moving, and divorce.
And I'm kind of in the middle of all 3 because we unfortunately had a passing. Charlie's grandmother passed away. She was kind of the matriarch of the family. I'm also moving, and I'm sorry for the family listening, but he is driving me insane. I sincerely believe that men are not capable of change in the middle. If you disrupt their routine, it's like throwing a wrench in the middle of a calm pond. They literally lose it. They don't know how to handle anything outside of their confines of their normal routine.
Because our boyfriend Ryan had surgery on his foot, and he hasn't been able to walk, and just... Oh, God, it's so... I know he's going to hear this in a couple of weeks.
We don't care.
But I already told you...
Charlie doesn't listen to this podcast.
I already told you that you're pissing me off. Not even pissing me off. It's just, I don't think he realizes how fucking tired I am. I'm working full-time. I have this podcast. I have to take care of myself. We have a dog that I have to take care of. And then it's like him, and it's like, you are the biggest baby. It's like every little thing, I'm like, you're such a baby. Like, if it was me, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to downplay his injury. I'm not saying that he's exaggerating. I was there. The doctor told him, do not put any weight on your foot. But, if I wasn't around, you would have to figure out how to do certain things. You just don't have to because you know I'm going to do it. So the least you can do is not being a pain in my fucking ass. See, my boyfriend, as Kristi knows, jokes around a lot. He's a jokester. He's a prankster. That's just who he is. He's
slightly kind of like New York asshole-ish, but in the best way. Like, Ryan, I love you. It always makes me laugh.
He is. He's always going to make you laugh. He always makes me laugh, but shut up. I'm so not in the mood for your shit right now. I'm so not in the mood for your jokes right now. When I'm on 2 hours of sleep and I ask you what you want, don't sit there and be like, well, I could go for some ice cream across the street. And I'm just looking at him like, I'm going to fucking kill you if you tell me you want ice cream from across the street. He's home with my dog, of course. And then he'll just look at the dog and he'll be like, she's so mean to us. And I'm like... Mean to who? I was literally up all night because our dog was freaking out at fireworks where I let her sleep on my arm until my arm fell asleep.
PSA for anyone that's ever adopted animals. First of all, awesome for you because Vicky has adopted her dog. I adopted my cat. When I get a second cat and I get my dog, I'm going to adopt as well. We are all about it. But the problem with adoption is you don't know the dog's history. Right. So Lena hates fireworks. We don't know what happened. We don't know if it's just sound.
I have no idea. It's like, it has to be noise anxiety because she doesn't like fireworks. She doesn't like when cars are revving up.
It's bad. And it's to the point where Vicky doesn't leave. We'll invite her to the 4th of July. She's like, no, I can't. I have to stay with the dog because there was a few years ago, Lena had an accident. She injured herself from anxiety. And,
my dog got her tail amputated because of the trauma from July 4th because she was so upset at the fireworks. We couldn't calm her down. She went into her cage because her cage I don't use for punishment. Her cage is actually just for her to go to sleep. She has her bed in there. And she went into her cage and she was so frantic that she managed to push out the corner of her cage. Her tail got stuck in it. It ended up clipping the tip of her tail. We spent a month and a half trying to get it to heal on its own. It got necrotic and we had to amputate it because she's such a happy dog that she kept hitting it. But it all came from her trauma from people aren't considerate on July 4th. And I get it. It's July 4th. You want to let off fireworks. But what could you possibly have with fireworks that you have to let them off for 7 hours? You're not considering the fact that animals get scared, some children get scared, some veterans get scared. Have some consideration for the fact that there's absolutely no reason in the world why you needed to do fireworks from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. So I was on 2 hours of sleep. So Ryan, you were not funny today. I was not laughing. I was not amused. When you ask somebody if they want something, but you don't really want them to want anything. So I ask, but I don't want you to tell me something you need every single time. Every time I ask, he's like, yeah, could you get me some water? And can you do this? And then you wait for me to be sitting and be like, I need my pills.
There are some people that are just worse patients. And it seems like Ryan is the worst. I'd be your ideal patient. Even when I'm in pain, I'm like, oh I'm good. Thank you so much.
Or I would just tell you all at once everything that I need. Be like, listen, can you get me this, and this, and I won't bother you for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
No, that's not the case. That's not the case. So yeah, frustrating to say the least.
I know. Let's get into a Reddit post that
Reddit
is amazing that I had to kind of get into here. So this is from iSquash.
I love the names on
Reddit.
Right?
I love Reddit. It's so great. Here we go. I was abducted at a gas station during undergrad. Yep, that's the first line.
I mean, it's not funny, but it's like, what a way to just get right in there.
Just went right in. I was abducted at a gas station during undergrad. The locks on my car were broken, and as soon as I got back in, a strange man came in and forced me to drive him to an ATM. I've actually heard of this happening.
Scary shit ever.
It's creepy. I am paralyzed with fear, so any sense or reason I had went out the window. He claimed that he worked at Wendy's, and for my generosity, he would give me all the Wendy's I ever wanted.
I'm sorry, that's so not funny.
Give me them fucking Frosties for all this trauma.
Give me the broccoli and cheese baked potato.
On the way to the ATM, he showed me pictures of his daughters on his clearly stolen cell phone.
Oh, God.
Then a Whitney Houston song came on the radio, and he starts bawling his eyes out, screaming, "Why do all the good people have to die? Only bad things should happen to bad people," says the guy who's forcing you and kidnapping you and robbing you blind. I can't make this up. I go to the ATM, take out cash, give it to him, and drive him somewhere else. We pass by some train tracks, and I'm thinking, this is it. This is where I will be murdered.
That's the same. That's what I would have thought.
I would have been like, this is the last thing I'm doing. Listening to this guy cry over Whitney Houston as he steals my money.
And I know you said that all your logic and sense went out the window, but staying alive, I don't give a shit what you do as long as you stayed alive. You're still alive at this point. So.
He asked me what I'm studying at school, and I tell him biochemistry. Quote, "I believe in jet propulsion and all that shit. We are not alone. Aliens are among us." Literally put that on all caps. He then makes me pull over at a gas station and tells me, "Drive away, sweetheart." I called the cops, had to do a lineup. Apparently this dude has done this to a ton of other women, and some were less unscathed than I was.
I don't even know how to feel about that. Like, so funny, but so not funny. It's like...
This guy clearly was on drugs.
Oh,
like,
no, he's clearly lost his shit.
No way. You're a Wendy's guy showing pictures of your daughter, promising that they're going to get Wendy's.
Not Whitney Houston music. You're clearly going through some trauma and need some therapy.
The things people survive, man. It's nuts.
It's a funny story now, but you survived it. And again, you might think that all your logic and sense went out the window, but whatever you did worked because you were unscathed and you lived through it and you were able to make it a story on Reddit. So
bless your heart.
Kudos to you.
All right, Vicky, what do you got for us today?
Okay, I've got quite a doozy.
I'm excited.
Just a warning, anybody who gets easily creeped out, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Yes,
this is a creepy one because I actually creep myself out.
She warned me, and I was like, "Ooh, I don't fuck with this either."
Yeah, exactly.
So it's bad when the co-host of this podcast says, "Oof, that's pretty rough."
Yeah. So something I have always been fascinated with is Ouija boards. I'm not actually fascinated with the actual Ouija board. I am fascinated with people that are fascinated with Ouija boards.
I have never touched a Ouija board.
I will not touch it. I won't look at it. But that's always been it. I've always been like, why do people do this? Like, what is the fascination behind it? And how did it become a toy that's so deep into the history of Ouija boards? I needed to know how this even became a toy. But, I have always been intrigued with more like why people use them when they know the connotations that like what happens with it. But the answer actually ended up being more simple. It's hard to let go of loved ones and you just want the opportunity to talk to them. And of course, answer the age-old questions. What happens when you get to the other side? So before I get into a couple of, Ouija board stories, I actually, like I said, dove into the history of the Ouija board. So the origins of it are kind of like shrouded in mystery. But from the research I've done, it seems that in 1886, a few things happened. So there's an Associated Press story about these new talking boards over in northern Ohio. There is an Associated Press story in 1886 about these new talking boards that are like taking over northern Ohio. As at that point, in 1886, now we know some sort of talking board exists in Ohio. There's a man named Charles Kennard who lives in Chesterton, Maryland, and he claimed to invent the board that would become the Ouija board.
Time out. Isn't it funny? Because I'm married to a Charlie. He calls himself Charlie, but it's always the devious, deceptive, evil people that call themselves Charles.
My name is Charles, right?
Just wanted to say that. Just thought I'd say it.
But so apparently he asked a man that worked right next to him, E.C. Reich. He was a cabinet maker and a coffin maker to help him make a few of these boards. Later on, Reich would claim that it was actually his idea and that Charles Kennard took it from him and then just went on to make it this big successful business. listen, you snooze, you lose, buddy. Like, what do you want me to say? But we actually don't know who the one who actually came up with the idea of the Ouija board was. We just know they were involved. So it would become a huge hit in that Maryland town from 1886 to 1890. Then Kennard goes to Baltimore, meets a lawyer by the name of Elijah Bond. In April 1890, I'm seeing April 25th in a couple articles.
Okay.
In 1890, they decide they want to have a seance with the lawyer's sister-in-law named Helen Peters, who they call, as we all do, who they call a strong medium. They ask the board what it wants to be called, because at this point it's just called the talking board. The board spelled out O-U-I-J-A, Ouija. And when they asked, what does that mean, the board spells out, good luck.
Lies.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's how the name of the board came to be. Now, after this seance, the lawyer Elijah Bond files a patent, but the patent office says that you have to prove that it actually works in order for the patent to be approved. So a grandson of this medium says that his grandmother told him the following story. I guess the story got passed down.
Dun, dun, dun.
So Elijah Bond then takes Helen Peters to the patent office in Washington, D.C. They show it to a clerk who says, I don't want to be a laughingstock, won't approve the patent. They then get a chief clerk, because apparently, that clerk's opinion doesn't matter. So they go to a chief clerk who says, if that contraption can spell out my name, you got your patent.
Wow.
Well, now we know it was patented, so...
Guess it did.
Yep. So apparently, according to the story, Helen Peters takes out the board, asks it to spell out the clerk's name, and it does. So the chief clerk, visibly shaken, says, okay, you've got your patent. Because obviously, you get a talking board that spells out your name first thing in your head that clicks says, let's sell this to the masses.
Idiota.
Right. They get the patent, but patents are weird, and this patent doesn't actually state why the board works. It just states that the board works.
But shouldn't all patents state why?
It should, but this one didn't.
I guess because he was so freaked out. He was
probably so freaked out, and it's 1890. He's just like, get the hell out of my office. Here's your stupid patent.
Total. I would have done the same shit in 2019.
Right, exactly. Now, the Ouija board gets super popular, and you're kind of wondering, like, how did it get so popular? So there's a couple of different things, but a lot of why it became popular goes with what's going on at the time. So communicating with spirits really took off during the Civil War, of course, when there's a massive amount of death. And most families lost someone, whether husband, father, son, nephew, grandfather, you lost somebody. And if victims couldn't be identified, the body didn't get returned. And the only mode of communication back then was writing. So while you're waiting for your letter to arrive, or if your letter is going to get answered, people just wanted to turn to something else that was going to give them an answer as to whether or not their loved one was still with us, was hurt, was not.
I mean, I think that's a valid reason to accept it, simply because I think we all kind of crave that answer. You
right.
know
Nobody
what I mean?
likes the unknown. Nobody likes to be in limbo.
We all wish we knew what happened after we...
It's closure.
Deep down, you wish you knew what happens after death. You want to know whether there's a heaven, whether there's a hell. You want to know if someone can communicate on the outside.
And also...
It's instinctual to feel like you want answers.
You want, yeah, exactly, because we all want those answers, but also I can't imagine what it would be like. I mean, we live in the age of social media. People find out about, if somebody passes away, you find out quick. But back then, imagine sitting there waiting for a piece of paper to come and tell you whether or not your loved one is alive. I understand.
Side note, if you guys heard that pop, yes, it was a bottle of wine.
Oh yeah, we're drinking. After this week, we're drinking.
And this Ouija board episode to get through.
Right, so if you hear some slur, I'm so sorry, but I'm probably going to be drunk by the end of this because we're drinking.
We got to get through this.
So the spirit communication devices were there to answer questions that nobody else could answer. And of course, times of economic depression and wars, it makes sense that these, talking boards, they got popular. So for example, during the Vietnam War, Parker Brothers, right, the people who own Monopoly, a board game.
A real board game?
Yes, Monopoly and Clue. I love Clue.
I love Clue.
They bought the Ouija board because totally sounds like a thing that you buy in 1966. And then in 1967, it out-fucking-sold Monopoly. And that is the only time any quote-unquote game has done that.
I swear, there's something about the 60s. Like, the height of occultism was huge.
Oh, yeah.
And, people were obsessed with, the
spiritualism, cults, and it's just...
Rosemary's Babies was written in the 60s. So good. So many things came from that era. So it's the perfect time.
It makes
to let go
sense
of a cursed board game.
Because if you think about it, you can't really blame Parker Brothers. They knew their audience. It's like, so if someone advertises, hey, talking board, talk to your dead loved ones, and you're like, sure.
At the end of the day, they knew it was a good business.
Oh, yeah. They absolutely knew it. And you out-fucking-sold Monopoly, which is, insane.
Unheard of.
So when the Ouija board was invented, back in 1890, it was the Victorian times. And you weren't supposed to be alone with the opposite sex, and you definitely weren't supposed to touch them. So this board broke a lot of rules. It was built so that you had to put it on your knees, your fingers had to touch the planchette. It was ultimately a dating game. The original directions actually said that for the best results to use 2 people, lady and gentleman preferred, because, you know, the spirits care about the sex of the person asking. And that is why men wanted to buy it for women, proving since the dawn of time that men will go through anything to make women touch them.
Sexist piece of shit.
Exactly. So in 1973, one of my favorite movies came out, The Exorcist. And this kind of changed how people saw Ouija boards. So again, when we were wondering why, like, the Parker brothers bought it, before this, they were kind of a joke. Every time a movie portrayed the board, it was like the board would answer something embarrassing. And that's kind of proven in an I Love Lucy episode, which I have a clip from. I'll put it on our website, where she talks to someone with the Ouija board and then, like, say something really stupid and embarrassing.
Got it.
And so it was kind of always thought as a joke, which is probably why people also were drawn to it. By the way, if you don't know I Love Lucy, you are way too young for this podcast.
No joke. We really want you guys to be exposed to, like, real good television. Check out an episode of I Love Lucy. That was just a joke.
Don't stop listening. Thank you. But yes, the name of the episode is called The Seance. And again, I'll put the clip. I can actually put the episode on the website. It's like 20 minutes long.
Awesome.
But The Exorcist, if you haven't seen it, again, please go see it.
It is one of the best horror films ever made. Period.
And I had the, so Kristi and I love Halloween. We love October. Kristi's birthday's in October. We're obsessed.
I'm born Devil's Night, baby.
Yes,
I was
October 30th.
2 hours away. 2 hours away from being born on Halloween.
Oh, man.
So,
I like October 30th, though. I think that's a cooler day.
It's Devil's Night.
It's kind of better.
It suits me.
But every October, my sister and I have this tradition where there's a couple movie theaters in New York that haven't fucking closed yet that show some, like, old school horror movies. And I had the privilege of actually seeing The Exorcist in the movie theaters again, and it makes it even fucking better.
Amazing.
So please check it out if you haven't. But just a little bit without going into spoilers, basically the girl Reagan uses the board and then becomes possessed by a demon. So now the idea of demonic possession was associated with the Ouija board, starting with this movie, and it kind of takes off with this idea and it kind of starts terrifying people.
And wasn't I don't know if it's a fact or a fiction that The Exorcist was based on?
It's based on an actual possession.
So we don't know if the true facts of it is the fact that the person
it came
used
from the Ouija board or
if it was affiliated into the film, but it is the main premise of The Exorcist.
And it scared the shit out of people. So now you've got this, it's not considered a joke anymore. So now that we have, like, the history down, let's get into some creepy stories. And again, if you scare easily, I don't know what to tell you. Or you can do what I actually did in one of our recent episodes where Kristi really creeped me the fuck out. On any platform, there is a setting where you can either speed up or slow down the voices. And let me tell you, listening to this in a chipmunk voice will probably just make you laugh.
And she's referring to our Eerie MTA
Oh
series.
my God, that episode.
She couldn't listen to it without listening to me sound like I was either drunk or a chipmunk. So
I slowed it down, and she sounded like someone really high. It was amazing. So if you scare easily, try that.
It sounded like I already moved to Colorado.
So the first story actually takes place in Brooklyn, so I liked it. So in 1927, there's this legendary horror writer whose name is H.P. Lovecraft, and he wrote a book called The Horror at Red Hook, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And it was inspired by his apartment, which was actually in Brooklyn Heights and not Red Hook, but it was inspired by his apartment, which was described as being, quote, something unwholesome, something furtive, something vast lying subterraneanly in obnoxious slumber. Now, fast forward to 2008, a woman named Nellie Kurtzman lives in that apartment. And she says that the spirit of H.P. Lovecraft is both pervasive and not welcome. She states, quote, I feel like H.P. Lovecraft is associated with creepiness. Everything I know about him is fairly creepy, so every indication he's around is creepy. She said the indications began before she and her roommate even moved in.
Whoa.
She says, quote, a friend of mine lives on the top floor of this building, and I remember her saying, there's this huge apartment in our building where people seem to have disappeared. So yeah, by all means, move there.
Absolutely. Makes so much sense.
So the ground floor, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, had been left unlocked by the tenants who mysteriously left without notice. So again, totally go there.
Why do people do this to themselves?
I don't know. I'm telling you right now, all of these stories are just a bunch of bad decisions on top of each other. So Nellie and several of her friends check it out, and one of them, who apparently is like a fanatic of this author, figured out they're in his apartment, comes back and brings a Ouija board, because why not, and does a midnight seance. you're making super good decisions here, people.
Yeah, one thing after another. I understand this might have been back in the day, but doesn't it seem like the sequence of events just seem to make no sense at all to people? I don't understand how you set yourself up to fail this way. I don't.
Like, sometimes I don't ever like blaming the victim, but sometimes you could have avoided shit.
Be smart.
The person comes back, does this midnight seance with some other friends, and states, quote, my friend Martin had this friend Jeff who died about 2 years ago. Now, the person at the center of the story, Nellie, was not at the seance, but it was her friends. She did hear about the seance afterward and still moved into the apartment, so we're not going to give her too much credit. She stated before he died, Martin had left his dog under Jeff's care.
But to be fair, this was before the Ouija kind of became this mythology of a place to enter the evil world.
I mean, it did. I feel like people, again, they only see this in movies. They probably think that's a movie. It's not really going to happen.
Right.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
It's kind of this fictional board as at this
right,
point. You know what I mean?
This happened. So, like, the original person was in 1927. She moves in the early 2000s. And as we know, like, in the late, after 2010 is when you're seeing a lot of these demonic possession movies. So at this point, it's like the last movie was probably a few years ago. They probably
it's not solidified as the reason for all these hauntings.
Exactly. You hear about a lot of hauntings that have nothing to do with the Ouija board. So they probably were just like, whatever. So she talks about how her friend Martin left his dog under Jeff's care. He came back late, Jeff was irritated, and then Jeff dies a few weeks later. So they have this seance, and the guy Martin states, is anyone here? Are you upset about anything? And apparently the Ouija board spells out Lucy, which is the name of Martin's dog. And then another one of the seance participants, which is the one that's a fan of the author, who had actually been in the apartment because remember, they came back. And when she was in the apartment previously, she decided to take a brick as a souvenir. I don't know what the fuck you're doing with the brick, but she took a brick as a souvenir. You know, because that's what you do. Mm-hmm. So when it's him. When it's his turn on the board spells out brick.
Wow. And these are verified. No one's pushing it, correct? Right.
So
okay.
And nobody knew about the brick either.
A lot of conspiracy theorists will say this person did this on purpose.
It's involuntary muscle movements. Or
subconscious thoughts.
Like a subconscious thing. Whereas maybe the first person, Martin, maybe everybody knew the name of the dog, but nobody knew that he took the brick, this guy. So he says brick. So now you would think that Nellie, hearing about this seance, would like not take the apartment, but we all know that she did. But in all due fairness, finding a spacious apartment in Brooklyn is kind of like seeing a unicorn.
It's so true. You know, I would if someone told me like, hey, this place is haunted, but it's 1,000 square feet, I'd be like, all right, so I will burn some sage and call it a day.
Exactly. So she's kind of like, okay, I'm fascinated by that story, but the apartment's really big and I like it. So she decides to move in. But she says part of her attraction to the apartment was that she kind of has a love for all things unusual.
Fair enough. I think we do too.
Right.
So.
And you know what's unusual about a haunted apartment? So, you know, haunted apartment, spacious in Brooklyn, it's kind of unusual right there. So she goes, quote, when I first moved in, I was sitting on the dining room floor with some friends and there was this humming noise. Now, it wasn't the fridge. There's nothing in the basement that would be making this humming noise. And it still happens and I have no idea what it is. Several weeks after moving in, she tries to hang a picture. She gets a hammer, hammers a nail into the wall, securely hangs the picture on it, and shortly after, not only does the picture just come off, it literally flies off the wall and crashes into the floor. Then she leaves the room, comes back, and the hammer that she used to put the nail in the wall was gone, and she never sees it again. So now you've got an armed ghost, guys. You literally got a ghost with a hammer.
You can't find that piece of metal that falls on the ground, and let's be honest, most of us don't have that colored metal that is like on our floors.
Right.
You should be able to find that. No.
Armed ghost.
Nope.
Because that's not the end of it. She says her dreams began. Several nights after this happened, she begins to have vivid dreams about the person who actually gave her the picture, which is an ex-boss who she hadn't seen or talked to in years. She goes, quote, I have not had such vivid dreams until I moved in. That could just be adjusting to the apartment, or it could be a message from HP, but I don't know what the message is. Now, vivid dreams of old acquaintances have now apparently become common to her, like she has them all the time. And then she stated that she noticed other items vanishing as well, like a credit card that disappeared from her wallet. She canceled it and then it reappeared in her wallet days later. But then she's kind of like skeptical. She said, there's no way it's a ghost. I don't believe in ghosts. Despite not believing in ghosts, though, she does have a small shrine to the author in her living room as an offering to the gods. Just in case.
You know what, though? To be fair, H.P. Lovecraft was an extremely rare human being.
Yes.
One of my favorite films, and I recommend this, we'll put this on our website as well, is The Reanimator. That is one of my favorite films of all time. Let's just say there's a severed head that gets placed on a body and it somehow comes back to life. That gives you some kind of concept of how H.P. Lovecraft thought. Reality, science, and mythology can come together.
Right, which is why she kind of stated that she thought everything associated with this creepy. I don't think it's creepy. It was just unusual. But that's the kind of person he was. And apparently, I mean, she stayed in the apartment. Who knows?
Or maybe subconsciously told her to. We don't know the power that these things possess.
We don't know what the hell the Ouija board unlocked in there.
Maybe it holds some kind of special ability to kind of get into your head, because if she's having these vivid dreams she's never had before, and she has this shrine which is not in her character, there's got to be something deep inside that is drawn out. And it was probably
opened up by doing a midnight seance with the Ouija board in the fucking apartment.
101%. Not even 100%. 101%.
So that's our first story, and I like that story because H.P. Lovecraft and Brooklyn, so couldn't get better than that.
Totally.
So now I'm going to go into a story I saw on Creepypasta. Despite being the typical teen, a lot of people knew that I was different because they had witnessed a lot of weird happenings around me, and trying to find some answers to these strange occurrences led me to try many things, including the Ouija board. Again, good decisions going on all around here. I didn't see it as a quest for the truth or anything of the sort, just something I do for shits and giggles.
That's what you do on your downtime.
Right. Despite the fact that shit would actually always happen. So again, keep on making these great decisions. I would have these epic parties and tons of people would ask me to conjure up some spirits, most of who got stoned out of their minds while I got everyone relaxed with some meditation techniques and then invited spirits into my home. So sounds like a great night.
So these people got high, which already automatically opens up your psyche, mind. And then they meditate, which is even further.
And then he literally sets you up for, he literally sets you up for this shit. Totally cool, nothing strange about it.
Can't wait to see where this goes.
There would always be some kind of small paranormal incidents the house became famous for. For example, once we heard children playing with the dog, we could hear it run throughout the kitchen upstairs, and very faint laughter. And people were already spooked by this, but they got scared shitless when someone pointed out the fact that the dog was in the basement with us. Then, the most unlikely of person joined on one of our Ouija board sessions. Because, this was like a reoccurring thing. This certainly wasn't the kind of girl that I'd imagined being into paranormal stuff. She was kind of preppy, without the snobby attitude, and really down to earth.
Time out. Let me newsflash.
Fuck you.
Anybody can be into true crime, horror, comedy, all that. There is no type for the paranormal.
Kristi and I definitely don't look like someone who's into it. It's not like we're walking around with goth makeup and like pentagrams.
That's what I'm saying. That's bullshit. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast, you know that's bullshit. It's bullshit. So, anyways.
She was also a grade A student who never did drugs. I was a straight A student. I'm still a straight A student, so fuck that.
Please.
And probably had never gotten drunk once in her life. All right, so she's super cool. Well, maybe she didn't want to invite a bunch of shit into her mind. Still, she was incredibly open-minded, even enthused about the seance, and at some point she joined in with me. As soon as her hand touched the pointer, the atmosphere changed, and I kept having huge chills running through my body. I knew that something was up. We had definitely some sort of connection, and by the look on her face, it was undoubtedly clear that she felt the same. Her line of questioning started, but these weren't simple questions. They had to do with the things that I had been wondering about myself. This girl knew a lot and certainly had experiences similar to mine. She invited me over to her home not long after this session. It was a beautiful home in a rich district of the city, but as soon as I walked in, an intense feeling of uneasiness came upon me. It didn't feel right, but I still didn't mention anything about this. I remember sitting in the kitchen, discussing music, since we were considering playing a concert together, when all of a sudden I noticed that one of the cupboards was just open, and it definitely wasn't moments before. I pointed towards the cupboard, and she just gave me a weird look, while her boyfriend smiled and simply said, "Oh, that happens." I finally got to talk to her about this, and she had so many stories to share, which were very similar to mine. She mentioned a presence that always followed her into her room at night, and she could actually see footprints in the thick carpet, which started from the living room, then up the stairway and into her room, which is a big fat no.
Nope.
Nope.
No.
All the way into the corner of the closet. They had these closet doors, and she just felt like this presence was peering at her all through the night.
And you ever notice that it's always a closet or a basement,
right?
Or an attic? It's always these weird.
Why is it not the big open space in the living room?
The big crevices of space where all dark matter can appear.
Right.
I wonder what it is about that. Maybe because people don't sage and bless it, and you always forget.
I'm gonna start blessing my closet. I'm gonna sage the shit out of my closet.
I am saging up and down, left, right, north, south, east, west. That's all I'm saying.
But apparently, it really freaked her out. Which no shit.
Duh. This
shit. What I just told you about a fucking spirit leaving footprints and following her is why she insisted on using the board to communicate with spirits again. Again. You know what? The name of this episode is Bad Decisions. I swear to God.
Decisions.
She wanted some answers. You know what? At that point, fuck the answers. So we started using the board on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah, because that's what you do.
Right. Meeting up as many times as we could. There was some undeniable truths, but there was also a lot of crap, and it was always hard to tell if it was actually working. You could have stopped here. It seems I was more interested in proof while she was more interested in knowing and understanding what was going on. Not that I wasn't interested in that either, though. Over the course of a month or two, everyone started noticing changes in both her appearance and behavior. Well, no fucking shit, because you use a Ouija board every day.
Seriously.
She had gone from wearing vividly bright dresses to dark clothes. She missed a lot of classes, her grades had dropped, and she had withdrawn herself and seemed a lot more reserved. It seemed as though all she could think about was the board. All she talked about was what had been revealed to us and kept putting everything in question. At this point, I suggested that we just call it quits for a while. The fucking smartest shit
No
you
shit,
said.
Sherlock.
But she really wasn't too pleased with that, but still promised to stay away for at least a few weeks. That night, I had a dream, or more of a vision. She was sitting with a group of friends trying to contact spirits with the board. When I woke up, I called her, asked her why she was still playing, and I especially remember that she got really freaked out when I started naming everyone that was there with her. The next day, she explained how it wasn't even working and how she needed me. She asked if I would join her for one more session, but I declined.
Nope.
And asked her again to quit using the thing, but I knew she wasn't going to give up on it, so I said, all right, one last time, and if we don't get any proof that this thing even works, we cut up and throw it in the river. So many bad decisions.
Seriously, everyone knows not to ruin a Ouija board.
Nope. Then added, and this time, we're playing in the graveyard.
Let's amp up the weirdness. Let's amp up the fucking possibility that the paranormal will just come to us. Sure, let's do that.
You get shit in the graveyard without a Ouija board.
Dude, I'm afraid of graveyards. Going through them. There's a Dominican thing when you're passing a graveyard to hold down a button so death doesn't look your way. I literally hold down buttons. Charlie thinks it's hysterical. Every single time we're passing a cemetery, I subconsciously hold the button because I don't want anything following me. But yeah, let's open the Ouija board.
Bring the Ouija board. The plan was simple. We would go to the graveyard and I ask if the person was buried here, get the name, and see if it actually existed. There were quite a few people there, a dozen or so, who she had invited. She thought that the spirit could draw the energy from all the people around and gain enough strength to actually bring some proof. When I suggested my plan, she firmly agreed to it. She had everyone in a circle around the board, and at some point they were even touching it. Our fingers rested against the pointer, and then I felt a sudden weight on my fingertips, and the thing started to move around, spelling out random letters. We explained our system to the spirit, which was to go up to the center of the board between each word while someone wrote down what was said, and it seemed to understand, because the board understands you.
And that doesn't freak you out at all.
Not at all. Her first question was, why are you here? And it spelled out, God betrayed me.
G-A-W-D? Super Boston.
Betrayed, B-E-E-T-R-A-D-E, me.
Is this a Boston accent?
I don't even know. Then I asked for its name, and it spelled out H. Jalbert. And then I asked in which direction his tombstone was, and it pointed down in the corner of the graveyard. A friend and I started walking, row by row, trying to find this person, but no stone bared the name in that direction, and we couldn't even find that name anywhere in the whole place. So I went back and I told her that I had one final plan, to hold the board with one hand and the pointer with the other and have it guide us to the site, because, this isn't fucking weird enough. We picked it up, started to make our way down the hill, when I spotted a tombstone way down the hill in the distance, and shivers went right through my body. I had been there, and there was suddenly no one by that name. I was sure of it, like he was just there. I felt as though I knew that there was something there. I brushed it off, wanting my mind to be completely clear and objective. I looked away from that area and was trying to look up towards the sky, sometimes tripping since I wasn't even looking in front of me. The thing turned sharply, and at this point, huge shivers kept surging through my entire body. It wasn't out of fear. I really didn't know what it was. Then, while slowly pacing to the end of the row, I felt the board slip out of my hands as I hit the ground. My mind went haywire with visions, and I was overwhelmed with emotions. I quickly looked at my friend, but she was gone, running up the hill screaming, "Your friend sucks."
Yeah, and she's the one that planned this.
Right? My ears were ringing, my eyes were watery, and I couldn't talk, much less walk over to her, and yet that's all I wanted to do. Then I noticed the tombstone. It was marked Henry J. Albert. So it wasn't H. Jalbert, It was Henry J.
Albert. By the way, never trust a man with two first names.
Oh, I always say that. 2 first names, 2 last names. No. I finally gathered my senses with the help of some friends and walked up to her. Everyone was just staring at her with this look of terror on their faces, and I knelt down to tell her that I understood what had happened when I noticed her eyes, that they were completely black. Someone gave me a flashlight, but her pupils were unresponsive. She was talking to herself, completely incoherent, laughing, crying, screaming, and making no sense at all. So we had to get her out of here. She was in no state to drive her car, so some of her friends decided to drive her car for her, and I decided to walk with another one of my friends. While walking, my other friend kept asking me what had happened, and I told her that I felt the spirit in me. I saw this person's life and what it was that he wanted me to do. He wanted me to speak to his wife to apologize for some of the things he had done. We stopped in this small restaurant. We were sitting towards the back area and I was describing what I had felt and seen. Then told her that I thought that perhaps this entity was still in my friend when all of a sudden I noticed her jaw drop. I quickly turned around and standing there in the back of me is my friend with a blank look on her face. I came to pick you up. I'll drive you to home was all she said. I asked her how she knew where we were since it was impossible for her to know, but she just reiterated, I'll drive you to home. Then I noticed her eyes were still black as when we had left her. We got up, we got in the car. She said she was fine to drive, but once we started moving, she started talking to her hand, laughing hysterically, burning red lights, and not doing her stops.
What the fuck?
She was actually driving to her house, which was on the other end of town, but we didn't dare say anything. She drove into her driveway, got out of the car, and said, I'm so sorry, and left there.
What the
This would be the last time she would ever speak to me. Throughout the entire week, everyone said they felt a presence and shit kept happening to everyone that was there. From weird phone calls to chairs moving by themselves. Everyone was terrified. I remember talking to the friend that walked home with me. She was saying that nothing had happened to her, and just then, the light in her room went out. And shit would just always happen every time someone would mention Mr. Jalbert. The girl seems alright now, but she still avoids me. Just the look in her face when she looks away, it's as though I am a bad memory to her. All the activity really stopped after this guy's wife passed away. I guess because they're reunited, so the activity stopped.
Seriously, you just capture the attention of a ghost that has unfinished business, and like that's all it took to destroy a friendship. Crazy.
And you're lucky that that's all that happened because...
Totally. Heard of hauntings that have taken people out, taken out families, caused divorce, caused illness.
The fact that she's fine now, you're really fucking lucky. The fact that you only...
The fact that it's an awkward friendship now is the best case scenario.
Probably. And the fact that you were like, oh, I felt some in me, and then you like went home and you were totally cool. He could have followed you. He could have stayed with you. You don't understand. You could have taken him home with you where he really sat there and haunted the shit out of you until you did what he actually asked. This was probably the best case scenario.
But either way, that's creepy as fuck. So
I'm telling you, I actually got creeped out writing this. The next one is a Reddit story from Celluloid Addiction. This story happened in October 2004. Back then, I was a third-year high school student. My friends and I stuck around the school late at night after our annual Halloween party. We had agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. You guys have to stop. It wasn't the brightest idea. Could have gone with that decision. But we needed a thrill. So he says, we find a nice spot under a huge tree and proceeded with our half-ass ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Rumors had it our school was haunted, but we've never really experienced anything firsthand, and it was Halloween when all the spirits came out to play. All we wanted was to get spooked. Also, we've never seen a Ouija board firsthand before, so we were pretty excited. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house built in the 1800s when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. Don't do a fucking Ouija board seance in anything that fucking old. We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used often, located beside a creepy old Jesuit house. People only go there when they needed to use the restroom, store equipment on one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends. Now you're just ruining the make-out spot.
Right?
We sat down in the middle of an open space with only an exposed bare bulb nearby illuminating the surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios. It was our typical dumb kids doing dumb things. I'm glad you recognize that.
Admittedly so.
My friend who bought the Ouija board proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was a glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious. But it gave us the ability to see what was written in the dark. Not knowing what to do, and going after what we've seen in movies, we all proceeded to place our index finger on the top of the planchette. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start the ritual. Plus, the board didn't come with instructions, so we decided to just throw out a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are any spirits living there, please talk to us," one of the girls joined in. We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still, nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked the planchette, and the girl who brought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We all placed our index fingers on the planchette once more and asked, if there's anyone there, we would like to make contact. Don't break the circle, one of my friends jokingly said. Shut up, I whispered. We were just about ready to give up when the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke, darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. Yeah, just a coincidence, because you didn't just ask a fucking Ouija board to make contact. Yeah. Okay, don't break the circle, I yelled out. Is anyone there? I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. Guys, I'm scared, my friend beside me said. My mom warned me about playing with forces we don't know.
Listen to your mother.
Did you die here? Were you killed during the war? Are you the headless priest that roams these halls? Do you know Jose Rizal, our national hero? Are you a hottie? My friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random, stupid questions. Nothing. This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore, my friend said, exasperated. We were all thinking the same. Just then, a group of dogs from the neighboring house started barking at us through the chain link fence.
Dogs always know.
Exactly. These 6 dogs were growling and showing teeth. We all screamed and without finishing the ritual, bolted right out of there. We didn't see each other until after Halloween break, and this is where the story gets creepy, because, none of this is creepy yet. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late, after hanging out with her friends from the neighborhood, when she realized she forgot the keys to her house. So she called her brother up, who was then still sharing a room with her, and what he said crept the hell out of her. He swore she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walk in a while ago, and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was what we all thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and seen things. But then my other friend started telling us about an encounter that she had on Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the light started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. Your typical horror movie visuals, shrug it off to faulty wiring. But just then, she saw the door to her room open and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop of her staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. No way, my best friend who just joined the conversation said in disbelief. Something happened to me as well. He recalled that he was sleeping one night when he woke up feeling really uncomfortable. He described his vision as having TV-like static and a feeling of heaviness surrounded him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through the window. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I had an almost run-in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home after fooling around with the Ouija board when I felt our car jerk. I woke up instantly. Looking out the window, I found out that we'd been hit by a huge oil tanker. I panicked and leaped out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash since the front of the car was a total wreck. I still don't have any explanation why those things happened to us. I have one. Because you took a Ouija board and you did a seance and you asked for contact, and that's why that should happen to you. But thank God nothing happened after that. I never played or got near another Ouija board ever since.
Is this episode almost over?
It is. I have one more story.
Oh, thank God. Seriously, this is, I think, our 6th month into this. This is the first time you've genuinely freaked me out.
Mind you, Kristi has creeped me out like 5 times. So I have one last story, another Reddit one from Goldest. And again, like we said, that some of our stories have happened earlier in like the 2000s, but anybody who's been around the last few years knows that this whole Ouija board, possession, demonic possession, haunting thing has been really popular. So this story actually is a little bit more recent. It's from 2011. Okay, guys, so I know recently psychics, Ouija boards, ghost hauntings, and anything paranormal really has recently gained a lot of mainstream popularity. And although I completely understand the curiosity that comes with breaking into abandoned places to hunt for ghosts or do Ouija boards with your friends in the middle of the night, take it from me, this shit's not to be taken lightly. During July of 2011, my friends and I decided to go on a camping trip to Vancouver, British Columbia during our final summer break before senior year. We stayed at Garibaldi Provincial Park because my friend's aunt lived about 20 minutes away, just in case we needed anything. We're not really experienced when it comes to the outdoors, being high school kids in the suburbs of Mississauga, so this convinced my parents to let me go. I don't know why, because my parents would have said no. About a week before we left, one of my friends, Daniel, brought up that he had found his grandmother's old Ouija board in his attic. When he was living in Ecuador, he had always been told to steer clear of it, but after she passed away, he completely forgot about it.
Once again, in an attic, don't take anything out of a dark, creepy place in your house.
No basements, no attics, no closets.
Yes, stop it.
Obviously, being the ignorant, rebellious 17-year-olds we were, we decided to take it with us. None of us really believed in it, aside from Daniel, who was told stories by his grandmother as a child, but even then he was curious to see if they were true. Now here's the thing. They didn't know about it, so fine. But if you had all this fucking information, why would you still do it? Grandmas don't lie like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the week finally passed by and we left for our trip. We safely arrived at my friend's aunt's house and gathered everything we needed to spend the night in the forest. The day passed by pretty quickly and mostly consisted of us putting up the tent and setting up our campsite. Once the sun went down, we decided to light a fire and roast hot dogs. Just when we were about to pass out from exhaustion, Daniel brought up the Ouija board, and there was no way we were going to leave without doing it. Little side note, this was not one of those plastic Hasbro boards you found in your nearby Toys R Us. This is about 50, 60 years old from a small town in Ecuador, probably made by Satan himself by the looks of it. I'm not sure how well the manufactured ones work, but just to be safe, I'd avoid those at all costs as well. Some of the 5 of us huddled around a circle alongside the dying fire. Daniel said a prayer of some sort in Spanish before we started, and to be honest, I nearly shit myself because I thought he was possessed already. Nah, just speaking Spanish, dude. Then he explained to me that his grandmother told him to pray beforehand to avoid evil spirits. Still, not knowing what we were doing, we figured the best way to begin was to ask a question. So everyone put 2 fingers on a leaf we found on the ground to use as a planchette since Daniel said he couldn't find the original. We decided to ask some stupid questions like, how small is Daniel's dick? Because boys. Naturally, we didn't get a response and just figured the whole Ouija board thing was a hoax. Then we decided to ask the most basic question. Is anybody there? Suddenly, our arm started to move the leaf, spelling out the name Vual, V-U-A-L. I, of course, freaked the fuck out, as did my friend Celine, whose aunt was the one living nearby. Let me tell you, at that point, we should have stopped. But hey, it actually worked, so why not finish the seance at a meager price of a week of sleepless nights, some wet pants, and your soul? We continued to ask questions, mainly about Vual and his background, from which we didn't get much more than Aricola est in agri, every time we asked anything related to the demon. After a few failed attempts at getting to know our company, we decided to steer the questions back to us. Sitting across from me, Patrick asked, which of us won't graduate, jokingly. Our hands sped out Daniel and Celine. We all laughed, since Daniel was one of the smartest people I know, and Celine's mother would ship her to boarding school in a heartbeat if there was even the slightest inkling of suspicion that her youngest daughter wasn't attending a university. We then asked a few more questions about our personal lives and decided to call it a night. We said our goodbyes and went inside the tents. At around 4 a.m. that night, I woke up for some unknown reason. As I was about to roll over to my side and fall back asleep, my friend Sierra, with whom I was sharing a tent with, asked why I was breathing so heavily. I wasn't. We stayed up for the rest of the night trying to figure out the source of the noise, too afraid to check outside. I suggested that it was probably some animal, but she swore she felt the breath down her neck.
Oh, hells no.
The next morning, we asked the others about it, and nobody said they heard anything, so we just brushed it off as a too vivid nightmare, and after packing all of our stuff, we made our way back to Celine's aunt's house. The rest of the summer passed by uneventfully, and by the time the school year started, we had almost all but forgotten that night. As the weeks rolled on, Daniel became pretty distant from all of us. We'd been talking less and less throughout the summer, but I figured he was trying to make the most of his then full-time job in order to save some money for university. However, it got worse during the school year, and then I thought maybe he's just stressing about homework or extracurriculars. I tried reaching out to him once in a while, but he never answered his phone, and when I saw him at school, he looked as if he hadn't eaten or slept since the Cold War. Then, one night, I got a phone call from Sierra. She was late to picking me up because the highway had been closed, and driving by Daniel's house, she noticed 2 police cars parked outside. We drove by his house later that night, but the police cars were gone. And of course, he didn't answer his phone, so we figured we'd just corner him at school tomorrow and ask what happened. However, he didn't show up the next morning, and neither did Celine. It wasn't until that evening that I found out what happened. Daniel had stabbed Celine 17 times and dumped her body in a river near the school, and shortly after jumped off a bridge onto a highway, dying after being hit by a car. When they found Celine's body, she had the words, Aricola est in agri, engraved on her left arm. It took me a few months to finally realize that's what the demon meant when he said they wouldn't graduate.
What the fuck? So wait, did this thing haunt them and make him kill her? Or
I think it possessed Daniel and made him kill her.
Holy shit. Because it's like these kids were like straight A students. Like there would be no way he would just suddenly decide to just turn on this girl. There's no way. Oh my God. Dude, like I'm gonna steal it from Crime Junkies. Full body chills, like no joke. Like this is crazy. Like
hence why I texted Kristi at least 3 to 4 times. This episode creeped me the fuck out.
And I'm fucking freaked out. So can we please? I'm gonna move on to the who does this because okay. I normally don't do it this quickly, but I can't even handle this. I am never ever touching a Ouija board You can't pay me $1 million.
I mean, I think you probably already were going to touch it, but you're really not.
And then it was cracking me up initially because you kept saying plancha, which in Spanish means iron. But now I'm never going to look at a plancha again the same way. Thanks a lot, Vicky. Let's please move on.
Wrinkle-free clothes. Wrinkle-free clothes.
Who does that? Who does that? Who does that? Who does that?
This is something that I found hilarious and yet horrifying. So it coincides really well with this episode. Via yahoo.com, worried about facial recognition technology? Juggalo makeup prevents involuntary surveillance.
If you guys don't know what juggalos are, they're the people who are the fans of Insane Clown Posse, and they paint their faces like clowns.
I know I've never exposed this on the podcast, but I actually do suffer from colorophobia, which is like a real condition.
We mentioned it in the first episode.
No, I said that I didn't actually tell them what it was.
No,
so
we said that you had a fear, only one, and that maybe eventually we would tell you, and we both hate clowns.
In the entire world, bugs, snakes, balloons, all the weird things you hear people's phobias about, it is clowns. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go through this because I found this hysterical despite this fact. There are many people who have fears about facial recognition, even though it recently helped authorities identify Capitol Gazette shooting suspect. The technologies can be inaccurate, and those inaccuracies affect minorities much more often than white males. Also, facial recognition may not even be legal, and its use raises concerns about violating civil rights, like when it was used to monitor protesters in Maryland. People who fear a future where Big Brother is always watching won't be comforted to know that China already utilizes this type of technology for mass surveillance. The way to truly stick it to the man has been in front of us the whole time. Fans of the group Insane Clown Posse, who are known as juggalos and juggalettes, often paint their faces to mimic the members of the band Violet J, Shaggy to Dope. One Twitter user at Tai Cleon, a computer science blogger for Wonder How To, has discovered that makeup is the foil to facial recognition technology.
Stick it to the man.
Facial recognition works by technology's ability to pinpoint specific areas of contrast on the human face, like where a person's eyes or nose are. However, Juggalo's makeup involved black paint below the mouth and covering the chin. Although Insane Clown Posses may not know how magnets work, they're probably more than thrilled that magnets are throwing off computer learning algorithms. I've always known magnet thrown off computer stuff, so it's hysterical that this would be like the Juggalos and / magnets combination thing. Like, this is just amazing. That said, Juggalo makeup is not perfect protection against all facial recognition technologies. Man. According to Outline, Apple's Face ID doesn't rely on visible light, instead uses depth perception. So the new black chin you just painted on yourself will protect you against the almighty Apple, which, by the way, insane. Apple has this absurd thing. If anyone's a Simpsons fan out there, the Simpsons episode where iPods are literally whipping us in the future, I can completely see that. Oh, yeah. Because Matt Groening is a time traveler and he's been to the future.
Absolutely.
Most Insane Clown Posse's fans save their makeup for concerts, but maybe this will start a new fashion trend. And
please don't.
But to be fair, I looked at it this way, right? Because I'm very afraid of the man. I think I'm a little more afraid than you are. I kind of have that King of the Hill, Dale Gribble thing where I'm like, don't say this, don't do this, smash your phone, I
should definitely be more scared, though, because I say murder a lot in my text messages. Someone's definitely going to come for me.
If, God forbid, we're ever accused of a crime, if you guys look at our stuff,
search history.
Our search history is fucking horrifying. So I can only imagine what people must think of me. But I also look at this as an opportunity to get over my fear of colorophobia, because I'm like, if I have to look at myself in a mirror as a painted clown, could I really be afraid of clowns anymore? Never in my life have I attempted this. Never in my life have I thought about this until I saw that website. So if anyone out there is afraid of the man but is more afraid of clowns, this might be a way for us to face our fears. And that's how I'm going to look at it.
And stick it to the man at the same time.
Yeah, it's a win-win here, other than Apple.
They know exactly who you are, Kristi.
I'm sure we're on a list somewhere. I'm not concerned about that at all because I've expressed my opinions very clearly. But maybe this is just a good way to get over the clown fear. I'm in my 30s. Should I be afraid of clowns anymore? No. They're just people. But people are more horrifying than anything else. So maybe there's this deep-seated thing. It's not necessarily clowns. It's maybe the mask behind it, who they are.
What are you hiding? Why are you hiding? Why do you choose not to hide?
Just saying, homies.
This is what happens when we drink. Now we're drunk, and now we're questioning a lot of shit.
Yes.
I wish you guys could see Kristi's face right now because she's drunk, and it's so funny.
And I'm really red because I'm really, really, really sunburned. Anyway. Vicky, thank you for freaking me out for
You're
the first
welcome.
time ever.
Yes,
This is literally,
finally.
I'm going to have nightmares and I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. So
It'll
thanks
keep
a
you
lot.
awake on the plane to edit.
That's very true. Good job. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please check us out on social media. Email us.
Please leave us ratings and reviews because it will help us get out to more people out there, and we love doing this, so we want to reach as many people as possible.
Absolutely. And above all else,
Stay weird, Americas.
bye.